Hello, I'm Mr. Rogers.
And I'm Mrs. Froman.
And you're watching the video notes for section 3-1. We are on a brand new kingdom, new chapter. Protists is what we're going to be talking about. So, kind of a weird, oftentimes called the junk drawer kingdom, because some are like an animal, some are like a plant, and some are kind of like a fungus. So they're kind of like a plant, but not quite a plant. They don't have quite of all the characteristics.
Some of the characteristics.
Some of the characteristics. And so, when we talk about a protist, these guys are eukaryotes. That means they have a nucleus. Sometimes they have two. They live in moist surroundings, or mostly in water, I would say, by and large. Some are, out of water. Most are in water. Most are unicellular, means one cell big. But some are multicellular. Some are big. They can be 100 meters long. Some are heterotrophs. Some are autotrophs. Some are both. We'll look at some guys on the microscopes that are both. Some are mobile. Some are not. And really, by and large, I would say a lot of them are that we're going to look at are going to be mobile. And see how there's kind of these categories where we have like unicellular, multicellular, autotroph, heterotroph. That's why they're kind of that junk drawer. They're kind of a little bit,
this, little that,
a little bit of everything.
So first we're going to talk about the animal-like protists, and those are called protozoans. These guys are all heterotrophs, so they're like animals because they need to eat other things. They are all unicellular, so they're just the one cell. And most of them are able to move around because they got to be able to catch their prey somehow. So, and there's some examples of some animal-like
one right there. The stentor knows animal-like for sure. I think the vorticella. Next we have our sarcodines, and sarcodines are kind of the weird blob kind of group. I think in a lot of ways they move and feed using pseudopods. Kind of one of our new words here, one of our new organelles. These are temporary bulges in the cell membrane that fill with cytoplasm. So there's no real shape. They can kind of change their shape as they need to move around, surround food. And they also have this new thing called a contractile vacuole that collects an extra water and gets it out of the cell. So as it moves around, a lot of times they're pulling in different food particles. They get a lot of water trapped in them. And basically to kind of pump out that excess water is what it does. So and down below an example is an amoeba. You can see kind of no real shape. And it's going to kind of ooze around. This shape will keep changing all the time. No two are going to look the same. You can see all different organelles inside of here.
Then we have something called the ciliates, and they're called the ciliates because they have cilia. And we talked about flagella in the last unit with some bacteria having that. It's kind of like flagella, except they're shorter. And they usually have a lot more of them. And a lot of these guys use them to kind of bring the food to their mouths, like the stentor that we saw on the other slide. Those little cilia hairs around its mouth, and it just brings the water in and brings the food particles into the animal. So these guys are a little more complex. They have complex cells, especially like the paramecium. You said earlier some of them have two nuclei. These guys are pretty high up there. They've got the two nuclei, one that they use for just everyday functions and one just for reproduction.
So you can see here, there's all that little cilia.
Those little tiny hairs around.
Just very visible.
So some of them use them to move, like that guy would use it to move, the paramecium, and the stentor would use that, or vorticella, I'm not sure which one that is, uses it to bring the food into its mouth.
All right, so again, another one is the zooflagellates. So flagella, flagellates, they have flagella, 1 to 8 of them, help move around. Many of these live on or inside other organisms. So these would be a lot of your parasites, would be different type of protists. So, and we look at that kind of relationship between different living things. We think of symbiosis in some ways. So when at least one species benefits, and so a lot of cases with our protists, it's a parasitic where it's going to harm the organism it's in. There's other ones called mutualism when they both benefit from living together. And so, but by and large, all these guys are the parasites. And you can see down here.
Now that's a mutualistic one, because it's lives inside the. It's gonna be really tiny to live inside the termite, and it helps it digest the cellulose from the wood.
We think of termites eating wood. It's actually this guy that helps them digest the wood.
And then we have sporozoans. These guys are all parasites. They feed on cells and body fluids of their hosts. They have different types of movements, a little bit of everything in this group, and again, in the junk drawer. And a lot of them have more than one host. They go host hopping. So malaria is a good example of that one. It gets into mosquitoes. Mosquitoes pass it on to other organisms like humans, and it can make you very sick. So that's what that purple thing in there. Yeah, they're growing, and then that big one. That's
some malaria inside a blood cell there. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so 7th grade, we're going to stop here. We just did the animal-like protists today. In the future, we'll talk more about the plant-like and fungus-like protists. So 7th grade, we're going to stop there, and we will see you along the way.
Bye.